My guest today is Steve Thomas. Steve resides in the suburbs of Chicago, Illinois, with his wife, Jenny, and his 8 living children. And today we're going to be talking about his new book, Catholic Joe Superhero. Welcome to the show, Joe.
All right.
Welcome to the
Thanks, Joe.
show, Steve.
I can't tell you how many times that happens. I'm like, people keep calling me Joe. No, no, no. I'm not a superhero by any means.
And you say that,
Yeah.
right? And I was thinking that as I was talking in your book on the cover there, and the back cover, it says, I'm not related to Joe Salvatore, who is the lead character of your book.
Right. Right. Yeah. No, I have to. My wife knows that for a fact, but I have to tell people that I'm not nowhere close to superhero status. We're just trying to climb up the rungs. That's all.
I will tell you, when you have grandkids, they will think you are a superhero, though.
Can't wait. Don't have any yet. So the oldest is with the Franciscan Friars, the renewal. So not expecting any out of there. And yeah, so we got to get them married first. So looking forward to that though. Yeah.
Awesome. Let's talk a little bit about your book here. What inspired you to write this book, Steve?
So there's a lot of things that really inspired me. I think probably the biggest one was just feeling like I was getting my butt kicked everywhere I turned. It was like, and even the church, just this constant hammering of negativity. The church is always on the defensive, right? We're always on the ropes, on our heels. And I was just tired of that. And so I thought, you know what? I'm going to create this story where this main character who's Catholic, he wins. You know what I mean? And so I want to give guys and ladies, which is, I'm surprised that ladies love the book as well, but I want to give them some wins and give them some encouragement, some hope. But I think the biggest thing was probably just to give hope to guys. I mean, I really did target guys with this, but like I said, I'll tell you stories about ladies who responded about the book. But that was probably one thing, Jeff. And the other I would say is I love my church. I mean, I loved it. I love Christ's bride. I studied for 5 years in the seminary, wanted to be a priest, wasn't God's will. And so I think love for the church. And again, just seeing the church getting mercilessly pounded and pummeled, I wanted to create a superhero that could like rise up and leave it to God to use a fictional character to like bring about renewal in the church. Right. So that was probably another major thing. And I think just the whole idea of I'm a very creative person. I have more ideas in the shower in the morning than most people have in a month. That's just the way my mind works. There's always like things going through it. And I just love the idea of creating something, especially something different. We've never heard of a Catholic superhero, although we have saints, right? But in this age of Marvel and all those other superheroes, I thought, you know what, the Catholic Church needs a superhero, and so that was part of it.
Tell us a little bit about your main character, Joe Salvatore, and how you came up with that character and just a little bit about it.
Oh man, so he is the iconic figure, the iconic man. He's like the man's man. He's the man that we all want to be. And again, when I create this, the beauty of it, and I wrote a lot of this in the Blessed Sacrament Chapel. So I was just kind of pounding our Lord for inspiration. But I really wanted to have a figure that could draw us all up. Right. And again, as guys, myself, I've struggled with depression. I've struggled with all kinds of things. Just as the person Bud wrote in the forward, he goes, Steve is this, Steve is that, Steve's a mess. All that stuff is true. But I wanted to create a figure that would give guys really kind of a roadmap towards masculinity. Because again, this main character, he was at one time one of the baddest men on the planet. I mean, he used to teach, right, like spec ops. He used to teach them how to fight, how to kill. And so here's a guy that could, with his bare hands, could kill an enemy, and the same hands caress his wife and his children. So he is kind of really the prototype, I think, of what it means to be a man. He's very sensitive, emotional. He cries a lot, but again, he's very strategic. He's very focused. A lot of things that I'm not. So I really,
Mhm.
really tried to create that figure so that guys could be like, man, that's one bad dude. And so he's a lieutenant general. He gets woke out of the military because he's such a straight shooter. There was the administration, coincidentally, could be like almost like our current administration,
Mm.
gets woke out. And then he finds out that his youngest brother, Vinny, is getting a divorce. And again, he was raised in a large Italian Catholic family, Catholic to the core, not just culturally Catholic, but genuinely live their faith. And so Joe flies out to visit with Vinny, like two good Italian brothers. They fight, right? And by the time they're done, Joe easily gets the best of his brother, but they're hugging and telling each other they love each other. But then they kind of like, where do we go from here? And so really that's how it starts. So Joe starts to unpeel the onion of how could his brother, who was raised in such a solid family, how could he be brought to this level of just kind of giving up on marriage? And so it starts in the particular, the micro, and then it goes out to the macro. It goes out to the whole church. And so Joseph Salvatore is I hope he's going to be around for a long time. I've got a lot of other, it's a series. I've got a lot of other, already started on some chapters in the next book. And the next book's actually going to be better than the first one. So it should be fun.
So I do know that Joe lives at the end of the book then.
Well, yeah, we'll figure that one out. Just read it and the end is, well, the end really is intense, and the end really does let you know that there's definitely room for more. And yeah, I love the ending. I love actually chapter 33. It's the last chapter. It's one of my favorites, and it's where the USCCB invite him to come in and talk to them. And so it's a very dramatic conversation.
So there's a lot of military references in the book, especially with him being a lieutenant general, being your main character. Do you have a military background?
Actually, I don't. Other than watching movies, I have. But I did talk to a guy on SEAL Team 6 who I went on retreat with. I talked to some Fulbright colonels, some other Marines, and other people in the military, and really did the first go when I wrote the book, the first kind of like draft copy had sent to a couple people in the military. Man, they got in my grill. They were like, "Yeah, you don't say this, you don't say that. It's always a Marine. You never call them soldier." And so I did get some corrective help along the way from people in the military.
Uh-huh.
And just one more thing. So a good friend of mine, his brother is a 4-star general, and he gave him the book to read, and he's a Marine. He just retired, but I'll be interested to get his feedback. That should be interesting.
So what do you want the reader to walk away with after they finish the book?
I think the biggest thing I want them to walk away with is hope. I think courage, hope and courage, and then also a renewed appreciation for their spouse. So the main thrust of the book is about marriage. And so
Mhm.
our Blessed Mother at Fatima, she said the final battle would be over marriage. And I really, coming from a divorced family as a child, I really feel called from the woundedness of divorce. I call it the crucible of divorce. I feel like our Lord and our Blessed Mother has kind of prepared me to create this narrative that will really kind of strike at the core and the heart of what's wrong with our church, and that is its marriage. The failure rate in our Catholic Church is the same as a secular society. So we have to seriously look at that. We've got a sacramental problem. We've got not a problem. It's actually it's a horrific travesty. We've got the sacrament of holy orders. They do 8 years of training, which they should, and thank God for our priests. We love our priests. But marriage, you might get a pamphlet, maybe a weekend. So I think that we really need to seriously rethink how we do marriage and how we prepare people for marriage. So the biggest thing for me, and the biggest battle that I'm fighting, and that Joe Salvatore is fighting, is for marriage. And that's the thing, is that we have to fight for that. We can't let it. I mean, it really is. It's the heart of the church, right? It's the primordial sacrament, as St. John Paul II said. And if we can't get marriage right, we'll never have renewal in the church. We'll never have a springtime of faith, a civilization of love. We have to get marriage right. And so that's what this book addresses. It's all about marriage.
Which ties into the masculinity part too.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, because again, my father was always gone, Jeff, and never came to the games, and just I'd say a lot of woundedness there that I had to kind of get over, and still getting over. I'm 61 years old, and still there's still times where you feel that pain, but I use it now. I use that pain and that suffering. I give it to Jesus on the cross to give to the Father for souls, and that's why this is kind of getting off subject a little bit. But I had gone to a Sikh conference down in St. Louis, And it was just a really incredible spiritual event. It was like 22,000 on fire young adults and like 300 priests and religious and 30 bishops. And it was just an incredible event. And I came back just really just kind of buzzing, spiritually buzzing. And I remember that night I prayed and I just kind of received this whole sense of, the everything that I'd gone through with as a child with divorce, of really feeling called to get the message out for people who have been wounded by divorce, to use that wound. So first of all, to give when you go through a divorce as a child, there's like a fracture, a fissure that happens in your soul. It just damages you. And a lot of times darkness and shadow kind of fall into that crack. It's just normal. And I feel like Jesus wants people to give that darkness to him, and his mercy obliterates it. But also what he wants is for us to give that suffering and those wounds to him, that he can give to the Father. Again, because there's so much woundedness out there that is being wasted, right? It's so I that was another thing. And with this book, again, with marriage, I really feel called to speak about and talk about. And that's actually, I've got other books that are going to deal directly with divorce. And I'm sorry, I got way off topic. You had
No
asked me a
worries.
question. Go ahead, Jeff.
Now, in that, and that kind of where Joe started headed down that same marriage path and trying to figure out what was wrong with Vinny's marriage.
Right.
And in that, that led him to the bishop's office, which led him into a whole bunch of trouble.
Right.
You have to read the book to find out how that all goes.
You see?
But do you think, just based off the marriage, that the problem begins with marriage prep? Is that one of the things that you see, Steve?
Well, I mean, it's not the only variable. It's not the only data point, but I think that I think marriage prep is a big thing. Cause again, yeah, you can have a solid family. I mean, how many people do we know that came from solid families that have, some have gotten divorced, some haven't. So I don't think it doesn't lay squarely on the shoulders of marriage preparation, but it really, again, in as much as we can do as a church, we have a duty and obligation specifically in regards to natural family planning. I remember my wife and we taught natural family planning for 10 years, and we fought to get it into the marriage prep program. And I mean, I can tell you a story if we have time about this really just incredible spiritual event that happened, where we were at a kind of a crossroads in our church, in our diocese, where we could have made it a mandatory part of marriage prep, and they didn't. And things could have been so much better. And again, for some reason, I don't know why. I don't know why I know why. The reason that they don't make it a part of marriage prep is a lot of people that we taught with were using contraception. And yeah, again, it was just a normal part of their lifestyle. And it's a radical departure from that lifestyle. And I think the church has lost a little bit of their soul when it comes to that.
When you talk about marriage, that is one thing that really makes for a stronger marriage is
Oh, for sure.
practicing NFP,
Yeah,
natural family planning.
right, right. And I went through this seminary and I didn't really even know what it was. I mean, I read Humani Vitae. And when I got out, a priest, actually bishop friend, had really challenged me because I want you to teach it. And I'm like, I have no idea what it is. So when we started to teach it, again, we wanted to have 4 kids and we thought that would be a good family. And then the more I delved into it, the deeper I got, the more of the beauty. I mean, it is just extremely beautiful when you get into the depth of what the church teaches on marriage, especially around family and family planning. You realize, and again, that lifestyle, and it's in the book. I mean, I weave this into the book again to try to help couples understand why, and the beauty of it, but why we teach and why it should be a part of your marriage. Because yeah, it's a lifestyle that will change the way you think. And then we end up having 8 kids, and praise God for that. And again, it trends you towards just a total generosity that again wasn't there in me when I had first gotten married. And so yeah, it was a really, really, really good thing. And if you want your marriage to last, it's a real good indicator that your marriage will last. It's not a guarantee, but it's a really, really good hedge on the bet. So women, if you're listening out there, you want your marriage to last, this is something that will give you a very, very, I would say, strong hedge on that.
And what most people think is that it's a way to not have children or to limit the number of children. It's also very helpful to for people that are having a difficult time getting pregnant to use it and to in that fashion to be able to help them get pregnant.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I don't know if it's any higher, but when we were teaching, it was like 1 in 5 couples were struggling with infertility for just a plethora of reasons. But yeah, you're right. I mean, it's not just to be used as like a form of birth control. Although some people have even said, I've heard people talk about you shouldn't even use it. I'm like, no, yeah, the thing is for you, like again, as a married couple, if you have the self discipline to restrain yourself, especially in the times where your wife is fertile, there's grace in that. There's grace in that. And, but yeah, really, it helps with understand your fertility and to appreciate and respect it. But also it really just kind of ingratiates just a sense of generosity that it will bless your marriage for sure.
This goes one step further into the book is what Joe finds out about his brother Vinny. What's one of the things that Vinny did that really put a strain in his relationship with his wife?
So, all right, I'll give you a little bit of the story. So they have a child, and then his wife says, "I'm not going to let you near me until you get fixed, get a vasectomy." And so that was a situation that caused a huge wedge between Benny and his wife Kathy, and he did it. He did it against his own. Again, this is like Adam and Eve in the garden, right?
Hmm.
And it was like Eve hands him the apple and Adam just takes a bite, right? Whereas Adam should have taken the apple and thrown it out of the garden. But Vinny does it. And I try to go really deep into the subconscious, into the depths of the soul as you're making that decision and kind of what that does. It's kind of a sin that just stays with you and constantly keeps you from ever trying to get, and I'm convinced that's why a lot of people stay away from the church is because they've done something that sense of shame, or that sense of guilt that, and I'll call it a demon, right? That it's that demon that constantly will like manifest itself when you ever want to try to go down a good direction and change your life. And so, yeah, that's a kind of a controversial part in the book because obviously men who have had a vasectomy and are reading it, there's going to be something that's going to go on inside their heart. And again, if so, I know guys who have had it reversed and being able to have children. I know guys that couldn't get it reversed that have still gone on to great holiness and sanctity. It's just one of those things that you can't just kind of pretend it doesn't exist. It's kind of that demon that you have to go face to face with and figure out, okay, how do I give my life totally back to God and to my wife?
And just from our lack of teaching, understanding, and maybe wanting to know, I've found that there's a lot of men out there, Steve, that they aren't aware that it's against church teaching.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Again, this is probably another segment, but anytime you change the nature of the act, right? It's like when you split the atom, the devastation, when you split the marital act, the devastation that comes forth from that, the procreative, the unitive, the love, the ability to have a child. When you split that, it just changes the whole dynamic. And really, you're talking about one of I would say the most central parts of our marriage and our relationship is that intimate part when we again can have a child or not have a child. When we introduce selfishness into that act, it really, really thwarts grace. That's the problem. And that's why we have to try to educate each other on why the church teaches. They don't just want to, they don't want to be a tyrant. They want you to be happy. They genuinely want you to be happy. And yeah, so yeah, again, this is another segment, but it's something I think that definitely bears mentioning, and which is why I put it in the book because I know it's going to cause some probably self reflection with some guys and maybe even some girls.
Absolutely. So, how does Joe balance his Catholic faith with the type of character that he is?
Well,
The military guy, he's actually taking people out, and he's done some
right.
things that are very challenging, but yet he has to balance that. How does he do that?
Yeah. So no, that's a good question. I think again, he loves to drink. Right. Sometimes he'll have a Macallan's 15. And so I think the fact that I don't know what the right word is, but he is kind of that perfect man that with in regards to strength, in regards to intellect, in regards to emotional intelligence. So he is one of those guys that knows that sometimes you have to do really, really tough things. And again, in the book, he does that. And I specifically wanted to show a kind of a weak side in him. So there's one part where he's on a mission, and a lot of his couple of his friends end up getting taken out, and it just devastates him, and he goes down a really dark hole. Because I didn't, again, you don't want to show him as too over the top, perfect. So he does have his flaws. He does struggle with certain things, but the thing is that, and again, in the book, I show priests as very strong, and again, because most of the priests are just really, really good rock stars. I don't go as easy on the bishops though, but I do. But really, his strength doesn't just come from himself. It really does come from his a lot of his relationships, his friends, especially with his friends, his priest friends that he has, who actually help him get through tough times. But he is the kinesthetic man. He's got this strength, this physical strength, and also emotional strength that allows him to navigate very difficult situations. And again, his Catholic faith animates everything that he does. And one of the things that with him, he's a Marine, he's Lieutenant General, he never swears. Um, and so people can't get their arms around that because he's a Marine. They think all Marines swear, but no, he's not an altar boy. He'll have a whiskey or bourbon, but he's definitely somebody that's not totally perfect.
So you did something really unique. You walked across America. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So actually, I was involved early on. So I had heard about. Well, let me go back 17 years. So getting ready to jump in the shower, saying a little prayer. I said, "Blessed Mother," I go, "What's something we could do just for your son?" And this whole idea of a national Eucharistic procession was just very strong given to me. And I tried over the period of 17 years to kind of get it going. Wasn't the right time. And when I found out about the Eucharistic revival, my son, who's with the CFRs, there were a couple designated preachers in his house, and told him about this Eucharistic revival. So I reached out to Bishop Cousins. I said, we got to do a national Eucharistic procession. And so long story short, they said, yes. I brought in a friend of mine, Bud, and he actually came up with the idea of coming from the north, south, east, and west and landing in Indianapolis. And I was excited because this good. I was actually going to be like running this, and then, but they, and eventually they came in with their own people who were a lot more qualified. But that was a little devastating. But what we decided to do was we decided to walk in the form of a cross across the US. So all total, it was about 4,500 miles. I was there for probably about 850 miles. I walked from the East Coast. So we walked from Marian Shrines. I walked from the Shrine of the Immaculate Conception to the Grotto at Notre Dame, through the Appalachian Mountains, and it was a wild adventure. Something I probably never should have done. I mean, financially, we don't have two nickels to rub together, but I really felt like God wanted me to do this. So I went, and we had like a van. We sleep down by the river. No, we had a van with a very Spartan, like couple bunks, no running water. And we stayed in the van, and we just walked. We just took turns walking, usually 3, 4 hours at a time, and met a lot of people, but just really prayed for our country, prayed for our church, prayed for marriage, prayed in preparation for our Eucharistic Lord who's going to be coming soon to Theater New Year. Actually, so they're going to be, I'm not sure when I think June they're taking off from the different points. But yeah, I would say the movement of grace that really allowed me to write this book. It really, that was the thing that did it. It just gave me that grace to embrace writing, because I'm not a writer. I never dreamed about writing, never, but it was something that just came to me. And like I said, I wrote a lot of it in the Blessed Sacrament Chapel. Had people tell me that it's anointed, so yeah, it was a lot of fun. I walked with, at one time it was Bud McFarlane, Randall Terry, and myself. And, we'd walk the day, and then at night we'd try to find a good watering hole, a good place to eat, and just had the best time, really good, solid male camaraderie. And so, but yeah, that was fun.
So, Steve, tell us what else you'd like the regular Catholic guys to know about your book.
Well, I'll give you some examples. So my mother-in-law, again, mother-in-law, usually they're pretty, so Mary Olson, She read the book and she goes, "It's 2 a.m. in the morning. I can't put it down. My eyes are burning." And the one comment she made, which is really very poignant, she said, "I wish I would have read this book before I'd gotten married because it would have helped me be just a much better wife." And another example I'll give is my sister. I know all these family members, but my sister, she's more on the left. We're pretty far apart, like ideologically. She's highly educated. And I thought, she goes, "I'm going to read the book." And I go, "Oh, geez, this should make for fun Thanksgiving conversation, right?" And she read it and she, with tears in her eyes, she goes, "I never realized how deep and how beautiful our faith was." And she came back to church. And so I think the average person will really get to see the beauty of our faith because that's what I tried to convey. Again, you try not to hit people over the head with it. You try to weave it in, but really our faith is beautiful and it's deep and it really does bring life. It really does bring happiness. So I would say the average guy or average girl out there, we all have our problems. We all have our struggles. I think that this book will actually help you understand your faith better and hopefully. And I'll give you another example. So a guy that is a book reviewer, he did over 400 reviews last year, which is insane. It's more than one a day. I'm like, what is this guy? Has he got like a chip in his brain or something? But he does, all he does is book reviews for Catholic books. And he read it and two things. So one thing he goes, "This book is like a Catholic Jack Reacher or Jason Bourne." And I thought, oh, I was like, yes. It's like, it's exactly what to kind of have that tough, masculine, fast thriller. But the next thing that he said was very, very, very deep. And he said, "I found myself as I was reading the book, just stopping and praying." And I thought that is just I couldn't ask for a greater compliment because here's a guy that just burns through books to do reviews and he's stopping and it's bringing him to a place of prayer. So I try to reveal the heart of God in the book. And there's actually some supernatural events in there that actually happen that kind of reveal, I think, the heart of our good Father.
Hmm. So, what's the best way for the listeners to get a copy of the book, Steve?
I would just go to our website. So CatholicJoeSuperhero.com, CatholicJoeSuperhero.com, and you can order books there. And if you want, I've had some people that wanted to buy bulk. If you want to buy in bulk, just reach out. My email address is on there. Just email me from there. And then, yeah, we can work something out. And also if you're looking for any speakers, so any men's groups, Knights of Columbus, or even some of the women's group, it love to go out and speak. So if they're looking for somebody, reach out to me.
Awesome. Thanks for being on the show.
Love it. Thanks, Jeff. I did all the talking. You just listen, man. I should let you talk more.
God bless.
All right. God bless you. Take care.